Somewhere out there, reality is treated like a library catalog, not just stories about what might happen, but actual futures, filed and sortable like you could scroll through all the different ways tomorrow could go. It really makes you wonder, if there were a place like that, who would be allowed to touch the shelves? Who would be trusted to hit save on an entire timeline? I've always been fascinated by the thought that the stories you and I quietly agree on, about people, about the planet, about what's just human nature, might be doing something behind the scenes. Not metaphorically, but as if some distant system is treating your expectations as instructions. It's a strange thought, isn't it, Isn't it that every word doomed joke and every well figure it out promise could be tilting the actual path your world takes? So tonight, instead of replaying your day, let your mind wander to a different place, a library outside normal space and time, run by a civilization so advanced they manage whole universes the way your station manages air and water. Most species get read-only access. They can look, but they can't touch. Humans are the exception. And somewhere above a quiet, healed earth, there's a maintenance worker named Isaiah Cho. Tired, decent, mostly unnoticed, tracking a small glitch in a ventilation line, when he stumbles onto a door that was never on the station's plans. On the other side is the stacks, and a librarian waiting because your species has been given something dangerous and beautiful. Automatic write access to the future. Some nights when the station dimmed and the earth turned slowly below, Isaiah Cho liked to picture the future as a quiet library. Not a grand hall with marble floors, but a long, soft place full of shelves and soft light. Every shelf held different futures people had once believed. Some futures were bright and steady, as if many hearts had agreed to keep them. Others were faint and loose, as if no one had really wanted them for long. He did not know it yet, but that picture in his mind was very close to real, because far outside normal space and time, there was a true library. It did not just store stories about futures. It stored actual timelines in a living form that could be read, guided, and sometimes saved. Most species could only look at those lines and move gently around them. Humans were different. Human belief, shared and steady, could press save on reality itself. Isaiah was just a maintenance worker, a quiet man who fixed air systems and tested valves and checked slow, patient machines. He had never led a protest or a company or a country. He had never even finished a full degree. But the library knew his mind. And on an ordinary work shift, while he chased a small glitch in a quiet station, the library opened a door. It did not invite a hero. It invited a human who still believed in a simple way that the future could grow kinder. That was enough. Isaiah's mornings began with soft light. The station lights always brightened slowly, giving eyes and minds time to wake. The room was small but clean, with curved walls and a view that still surprised him. Earth, a huge blue globe drifting past the window, wrapped in white cloud. He lay there for a few breaths, feeling the thin pull of spin gravity, and the gentle hum in the walls. Air moved with a soft push, steady and safe. Systems were working. That was always good. He pushed himself up, floated for a short second, as his feet left the bed, then settled back down as the ring's slow spin brought weight to his body. Again, he dressed in simple work clothes, a pale shirt that picked up stains, and a set of tools that hung at his belt. During his first years on the station, he used to watch every sunrise over Earth. The way the line of light moved over oceans and forests felt like a quiet promise. Now he watched less, not because it was less beautiful, but because life had become full of small, steady tasks that did not wait. He joined the flow of people in the main corridor, all moving at an easy pace. There were no crowds pushing, no sharp shouts. People drifted past in soft workwear and in loose clothes for study or art or shared meals. A child kicked off a wall and laughed as a parent caught them gently. A person with silver hair floated beside a plant cart, checking leaves and soil. Tech lived quietly in the curve of the hallway. Panels rested flush with the walls. Vents breathed. Small drones moved with slow care, checking seals and lights. Nothing flashed or demanded attention. Everything leaned toward calm. Isaiah liked it that way. At the maintenance hub, he clipped his tool belt to a rail and pulled himself toward his station. He checked the shift list, seeing the same types of tasks as most days. Review oxygen gain in the greenhouses. Inspect a humidity sensor cable. Confirm that a water pump in Ring Sector C did not overheat. He took a slow drink of warm tea from a bulb and noticed his reflection in the polished metal of a console. Dark hair clipped short. Soft lines at the corners of his eyes. A face that looked both younger and older than his years. Not much sleep, but not much worry either. Just a steady hum like the walls. All right, he said to himself, not loud. Let's see what is complaining today. He linked his slate to the station's system and watched data scroll past. Most graphs lay in safe ranges, drifting only a little. The tech AIs had already flagged a small anomaly in a ventilation line in Sector H12. Slight pressure drop, irregular sensor pings. Easy, he said. A nice, simple problem. He left the hub and moved through another corridor that curved with the station's ring. Outside the narrow windows, there was a slow dance of light. Small craft glided between habitats. A wide solar sail turned like a lazy hand. Farther out, tiny sparks marked other stations. Other platforms, all part of the quiet web of life in orbit. In earlier centuries, space had meant danger and drama. Now it was not safe in an absolute sense, but it felt like an ordinary part of human life. Earth was healing under careful climate systems and new forests. Oceans were not perfect, but they were watched and cared for. Up here, stations like this carried people who studied, grew food, built things, and simply lived. Isaiah's badge gave him door access wherever air and water moved. That meant almost everywhere. He passed through soft seals, climbed a short ladder, and entered a service corridor where fewer people walked. The lights were dimmer here, and the sound of voices faded. Instead, he heard pumps, quiet and deep, and the hiss of air in narrow ducts. The glitch report showed pressure loss near junction H. 1, 2. G at the bend where a main vent split into smaller paths. Isaiah pictured the map in his mind. He had traced this line during training and more than once since. It was like knowing a city's back alleys. He reached the right junction and checked the physical indicators first. No leaks he could see. No frost. No strange smell. He floated closer to an access panel and popped it open. Inside, pipes and cables rested in neat rows. A faint draft brushed his cheek, slower than it should be. Maybe a stuck damper, he murmured. He sent a command through his slate. The damper showed normal movement. Sensors did a brief test swing. Then what are you doing? He asked the system, almost like a parent talking to a shy child. A soft note blinked on his slate. Intermittent signal loss, source unknown, path conflict, near H. 1, 2, G. Path conflict? That was strange. The station's AI sent a tiny query bubble to his interface, asking if he wanted a deeper scan. He agreed. A trace appeared showing a map of data routes in this section. A tiny part of the network seemed to fork into a path that did not match any known layout. Isaiah blinked. That's new. He checked the physical cables again. They matched the old plans. No added lines. No strange boxes, just old, faithful pipes and data lines resting where they always had. He tapped to open a trace path view and followed it. The false path twisted through the digital image of the station, passing through walls that did not have cables. It came to rest at a point labeled simply as stacks, local node. He frowned. Stacks? We don't have that. For a long moment he thought it was some kind of test mode or an old label left from before his time. Maybe a trick of the debugging system. But the pressure problem was real, and the strange path was near it. His job was not to solve grand puzzles. His job was to keep air moving. He sent a request for a local map overlay and saw a transparent marker appear in the air through his contact lenses. It showed a point just beyond the bulkhead at the end of this corridor, slightly down and to the right. Isaiah floated to the end of the corridor. The bulkhead curved smooth and seamless. No visible hatch, no handle. He placed his palm flat against the surface. The metal felt normal, cool, solid, slightly buzzing with life. Stacks, he said softly, testing the word. Under his hand, something changed. The vibration shifted, like a cord adjusting. The metal warmed slightly. Lines of faint light traced themselves along the curve, outlining a shape that had not been there. A tall oval. Isaiah pulled his hand back, heart rate rising. For a second he thought he should call a supervisor, or station security, or someone from Central Systems, but the small anomaly report was tagged as non-critical. Air levels were fine, there was no danger flag, and then a simple thought came, what if it was just a new storage area? A hidden service base? The station had upgrades from time to time. Some things changed quietly. The oval brightened. The walls softened in the center, turning almost clear, like thick glass. Beyond it, he saw not more pipes or cables, but a wide, calm space, lit in a way that did not match the station. Shapes reached away into a soft distance, rising from floor to high, gentle ceiling. They looked like shelves, but not solid, more like tall beams of light holding smaller lines that hung and shimmered. Isaiah stared. He checked his oxygen level and CO2 badges without thinking. All normal, his sense of balance still worked. Gravity, such as it was, still pulled his feet to the wall. This did not look like any station module he had ever seen. Stacks, local node, his slate repeated, as if this strange place was just another room on a map. He swallowed. "Okay," he said, voice low but clear. "Isaiah, you are just going to stick your head in, see if it is an art project, and then go back and file a strange report. That is all." He stepped forward. The surface of the oval was not cold now. It was not warm. It felt like nothing at all. His foot passed through, then his leg, then his chest. There was no sense of crossing a door. It was more like the world quietly admitting that two places could share the same space. He took another step and stood inside. The station corridor was gone behind him. He stood on a smooth, pale floor that gave slightly under his boots, like firm sand with a thin, living skin. The air was mild and clear, with no strong smell at all. There was no visible source of light, yet everything around him shone with a steady, gentle glow. Rows rose on either side, tall, slender forms that reminded him of shelves and also of trees. Each held countless fine lines hanging in soft curtains, shifting colors in slow motion. Some were bright, steady, and thick. Others were faint as mist, almost not there at all. The space stretched far beyond what could fit inside the small volume of a station wall. There was distance here that did not care about the ring's measures. Isaiah's first thought was that he had stepped into a high-end visual simulation, maybe a private art habitat, hidden for some reason. The station had shared spaces like that, but they always had clear signs and safety tags. Here, there was only quiet. "Hello?" He called out, more to test the space than to ask for company. No answer came in sound. Instead, a shape appeared a short distance away, as if it had just decided to become visible there. It was tall and gentle in outline, almost human but slightly off in its proportions. A smooth form, like a robe made out of soft light, with a hint of arms and a head. Its face held no features, only a brighter area where eyes might be. Isaiah's heart jumped, but the feeling that came with the sight of this being was not fear. It felt more like walking into a silent reading room and finding a careful librarian already there, waiting with patience. "Hello, Isaiah Cho," the being said, but not with sound. The words were simply present inside his mind, clear and calm. There was no push, no force, just meaning, given gently. He tried to answer out loud, but his throat felt dry. "Hi," he managed. Should I be here?" "Yes," the being said, in the same inside voice. "You have entered the stacks. Local access has been granted for maintenance and for orientation." "Stacks," Isaiah repeated. "So this is part of the station?" "In a way that is both yes and no." The being said, "This node touches your station, but the stacks are not bound to your structure. They belong to the future's archive." The words settled in his mind with extra layers of meaning. Futures. Archive. A sense of something so large he could not frame it at first. "This is some kind of data store?" Isaiah asked. He looked at the bright lines hanging from the tall forms nearby. They shifted slowly, changing color and size. "More than that," the being said. "This is a library of all possible timelines for your region of reality. Each of these lines holds the path of events that may happen, or once could have happened, or now cannot happen because of choices made." Isaiah stared at the nearest set of lines. Up close they seemed to hold moving pictures deep inside them, superimposed over each other like many paths layered together in one. "That sounds like a simulation grid," he said, trying to fit it into words he knew. "Like a model of future events." "Not a model. Not for us," the being said. There was no pride and no shame in that statement, just clear fact. We are a Type 4 archive. We do not only watch. We maintain the stability of many realities. Your kind uses a different scale to speak of this, but the idea is simple. We handle energy and information for whole universes. We keep time from tearing itself apart. Isaiah let out a short breath. He had read about the Kardashev scale as a student, in late nights when he still planned to be a full-time physicist. Type 1 used the energy of a planet. Type 2 used the energy of a star. Type 3 moved on the scale of galaxies. People sometimes joked about Type 4 as a myth, like gods in physics, clothing. "You are Type 4, he asked. "We are what you would call that, yes," the being said. "We are the future's archive for this area of existence. We keep records. We guide flows of likely outcomes. We have watched your species for a long time." "That is a lot," Isaiah said. His voice shook just a little. He felt like he should be more afraid, but the air was soft. The light was kind. The being's presence was gentle, like a calm teacher with endless time. "Why am I here?" he asked at last. "I am just a maintenance tech. I fix vents. That is why you see a problem first," the being said. "The pressure imbalance led you to a misaligned connection. That misalignment is the opening through which this node now touches your station. We adjusted it for you." Isaiah's brow furrowed. "You changed the stations, systems. We nudged them to meet our node," the being said in the same patient tone. "We have wanted to speak directly with a human who still carries a particular kind of belief. The chance to align with you came when you were on duty." Isaiah swallowed. "You wanted to speak with me? Out of all people up here, you are a suitable starting point. The being said, you still think of the future with quiet hope, even while knowing many past harms. You often picture futures in story form. You do not think you are important. That matters. Isaiah gave a weak laugh. So you picked someone who will not try to be a prophet. Yes, the being said. If it could have smiled, he felt it would have. We have plenty of those recorded already. He looked around again, trying to ground himself. The tall shapes holding the moving lines seemed to curve slightly as he watched. There was more depth than his eyes could fully grasp. So you are a Type 4 archive, watching many futures, he said slowly, as if building the idea piece by piece. Why does that matter to us? Because your species is not like most, the librarian said. Isaiah felt the new name in his mind. Librarian. It fit the being in a simple, quiet way. Many species can observe these possible futures. The librarian went on. They can act within them, and their choices change things. But their minds mostly follow what is in front of them. Their imagination affects only a small area around their life. The being paused, letting that rest. Humans are different, it said finally. Your stories, held in common, can change the structure of futures themselves. You do not only react to what is likely, you push what is likely in new directions just by believing in a shared way. Isaiah took a slow breath. The air here seemed to move in rhythm with him. You are saying, our stories do not only sit in our heads, he said. They change how events line up. Yes, the librarian said. Your species arrives here with automatic right permission. The words rang in his thoughts. Right permission. It felt like a system term, used for file access or code pushes. But this was bigger. Right permission to what? Isaiah asked. His voice dropped even softer now. To this, the librarian said. It lifted an arm made of gentle light and gestured at the vast room. To the living record of your own timelines, it said, your shared belief acts as commit code. When many of you hold a story with enough strength, it does not stay as a guess. It becomes a fixed path through these futures. It is saved so that events lean into it. Isaiah stared at the hanging lines near his shoulder. A soft color passed along them, like a slow wave of dawn. We did not know, he said. We know, the librarian replied. That is why we opened this door. Today, you needed to hear it, in a way a human mind can rest with. Isaiah felt the station in the back of his thoughts. The pressure problem, the quiet people, the earth turning below. Some part of him still thought this might end, and he would wake on his bunk, late for shift. But the floor still held his weight. The air still rested warm in his lungs. What do you want me to do? He asked at last. For now, the librarian said, just walk with me. Look, listen, let the idea settle. The future is not in a hurry here. The being turned and began to move between the tall forms. Isaiah took a breath and followed. Small steps on a floor that did not quite feel like matter. Behind him, the invisible door to the station stayed open. patient as a held page in a book. Patient as a held page in a book. They walked in silence at first. The soft light did not grow brighter or dimmer. There was no sense of morning or night here, only a steady, timeless glow. The rows of tall shapes rose on either side, and the countless fine lines hanging from them shifted in slow patterns. Isaiah tried to match his steps to his breath. In step, out step. His heart had calmed a little. The air here helped. It was as if the space itself refused to rush him. After a while, the librarian stopped beside a nearby set of lines. "Let us start small," it said. Isaiah stepped closer. Each line hung from high above and reached down near the floor. Up close, they looked less like lines and more like clear paths made of tight, moving light. Inside each, he could see images, but they were layered together in strange ways. A face over a city, a ship beside a field, a hand reaching for a door. Many parts, all at once. "These are timeline paths," the librarian said. "Each path shows how events might go if certain choices and chances line up in that pattern." Isaiah watched as the images inside one path shifted. A child planted a small tree. The tree grew. The land around it went dry, then green again. Distant storms came and passed. People walked near it. Their clothes changed over years, then centuries. "It looks like a life," he said softly. "And more than a life." "Yes," the librarian said. "Timelines hold both small and large moves. From a seed in soil to a civilization crossing space. All of those steps link inside a path, but it is not fixed until something commits it." "Commits," Isaiah repeated. He remembered saving files, pushing finalized updates to machine controls. Once a change was committed, it became the new base, the new normal. "How does a timeline like this become fixed?" he asked. "Through many layers," the librarian said. "Some are simple chance, the behavior of particles, quantum events, random shifts at very small scales. You already know about those, yes?" Isaiah nodded. "Probability. A thing can happen this way or that way until it is measured." "Correct," the librarian said. "But those small chances do not live alone. They are shaped by larger patterns: gravity, chemistry, biology, culture. A storm forms not only because particles move, but because heat flows, winds rise, oceans hold their paths. Lives form not only because molecules connect, but because ecosystems already exist." Isaiah looked along the lines. He saw storms, yes, but also families, streets, simple tools, a whole world in each path. Most species affect their futures by acting in those layers, the librarian said. They move objects, change their environment, make choices. Their beliefs guide them a bit, but mainly as a tool inside their heads. The future stays as a wide field of many near equal options until their actions cut some away. "And humans?" Isaiah asked. "Humans add another force," the librarian said. It lifted its hand, and a new set of paths brightened to their right. These lines were thicker, glowing more firmly. They did not shift and flicker as much as the others. They looked settled. These timelines did not become fixed only from physical events, the librarian said. They became fixed when humans began to tell a shared story about them, and then act in line with that story as if it were already solid. Isaiah watched. Inside the first bright line, he saw a group of people gathered in a dim room. Long ago, they spoke with fast, intense faces. He could not hear the words, but he could feel strong resolve in their movements. The view pulled back. Over years, the story deepened. More people repeated it. It changed shape in small ways. But the core stayed. It became flags, songs, laws, and then it became simple habits and quiet agreements. The future that matched that story grew more and more likely until side paths faded. In your past, the librarian said, there were many moments when large outcomes balanced between possible routes. Wars might have gone longer or shorter. Diseases might have spread wider or faded sooner. Energy systems might have stayed centered on burning or changed earlier to gentler forms. Isaiah thought of the history feeds he had watched as a child. The deep crises, the long, slow turn toward repair. In each of those times, the librarian went on. Physical factors mattered, yes, but there was also a layer of story. Not in the small sense of tales for sleep, but in the large sense of what people thought was real, good, possible, or fated. The librarian touched one of the bright lines. The images inside slowed, then sharpened. Isaiah saw a time not too far in the past. Seas were rising, storms were strong. People argued on distant screens. Some claimed nothing was wrong. Some screamed that everything was already lost. Others held a different story. That it was not too late. That change could still happen. That repair was worth the work. At first, the stories of denial and despair were stronger. The librarian said, they pulled many actions toward doing nothing, or toward short, desperate choices that helped few. Those stories pressed on these futures. Several faint paths thickened for a moment, drawing Isaiah's eyes. In one, coastal cities went empty and stayed that way. In another, harsh border regimes closed out millions, and conflict filled the years. In a third, new tech only helped the rich, and the poor became a permanent, ignored class on a warming world. These futures were very close, the librarian said. They were not only possible, for a while they were likely. Isaiah's chest felt tight, but then the librarian said, something changed in your story field. A slow shift spread over decades. The images inside the main bright line showed youth gatherings, local councils, shared projects, people choosing different foods, different travel, different tech plans, new city shapes, forest planting, stewardship agreements between groups that once ignored each other. It was not only policy, the librarian said. It was not only devices, those came from a deeper layer. Enough humans started to believe, with stable, tired, patient faith, that a healing future was possible and real. Not certain, but real. The librarian's tone stayed calm, but Isaiah felt a quiet warmth in it. That belief did not live in only a few strong leaders. It went on. It lived in millions of minds, then billions. It was told in schools, shared in art, built into laws, posted in networks. People imagined a future where their descendants would speak of them not with blame, but with thanks. That image repeated so often that it changed the light of these paths. Isaiah watched the side paths now. The dark futures shrank. They did not fully vanish, but they lost solidity. They turned thin, like unused side roads that no longer held much weight. This is what it looks like when humans commit a future, the librarian said. At the archive, we record the shift as a lock-in event. The probability mass moves. The main path gains strength. Adjacent paths lose it. Your stories act like commit code in our systems. They say, save this version. Keep this path stable. Make events lean toward it. Isaiah took that in slowly. So you mean, when a story becomes strong enough, he said, it does not just guide people inside a fixed frame. It actually changes the frame itself. It makes some outcomes more ready to happen than others. Yes, the librarian said, your kind's narrative commitment trait is rare. Other minds can imagine. Other species can plan. But humans, when enough of you line up behind a story, your combined focus changes the field of futures on a deep level. Isaiah thought back to other parts of history. He saw crowds in streets, peaceful and firm, holding signs of hope. He saw the slow shift from heavy, extractive industry to lighter, closed-loop systems. He saw the end of some very old forms of harm, not because a law changed once, but because a shared story of who we are changed. Can you show me more? He asked. Yes. The librarian said it guided him to another set of paths. These were narrower than the climate set, more personal. Here is a small life-scale example. It said, watch. Inside the first path, Isaiah saw a young person growing up in a hard area on Earth. Some time back, the local story around them said again and again that people like them would fail. That hope was foolish. That hope was foolish. That trying for study or art or travel was a waste. The young person absorbed that belief. Their actions bent to it. Their world shrank. Skills never formed. Paths that might have opened did not. Their future stayed close to that early story. In the next path, almost all starting facts were the same. Same place, same time, same body. But here, the young person met a teacher early on who told a different story. Not that life would be easy, and not that they were special, but that their effort mattered and that there was room for them to grow. That story stuck. It was repeated by a few others. A friend, a mentor, a future partner. With that different belief, the young person tried different actions. Some failed. Some did not. Over years, they found work that suited their mind. They helped shift local policies that had held many people down. Other lives bent around the space they opened. These are two possible futures for a single life, the librarian said. From the outside, they are similar in many ways. No large world event changes because of them alone. But the person's belief in their own story changes which chances they even see. That is a micro-commit event. And because they changed things around them, Isaiah said. Yes, the librarian replied. Their small story touches a wider net. A student they helped later becomes a policymaker. Yet, student they helped later becomes a policymaker. A neighbor starts a local care center. The waves move outward, all from a change that began as belief and then became action. Isaiah looked down at his hands. So you are always watching us, he said quietly. Watching our shifts in belief. Yes, the librarian said, we do not judge. We record. We steady. When you believe in fear, we see the futures that grow from that. When you believe in caring, we see those too. We do not choose for you, but your choices affect more levels than you know. Isaiah nodded slowly, and most species cannot do this as strongly as us. Most species can adjust local outcomes through action. The librarian said, some very advanced ones can even see their own probable futures the way you read maps. But humans move something deeper. Your stories do not stay at the surface. They compress many maybes into focused streams. It moved its hand, and several faint paths near them blinked off, then on again like a flicker. When humans all believe different things, with low strength, the field stays loose and chaotic. It went on. In that case, we can help keep things from tearing, but when a large mass of humans puts strong, steady belief into a shared future, whether kind or cruel, it pushes the whole field in that direction. We must then work with that commit to keep temporal integrity across many linked paths. Isaiah thought of times in history when whole countries believed cruel stories, that some lives were worth less, that conquest would bring glory, that harm was noble. Those beliefs had been strong. They had bent everything near them, and then we watched your later centuries. The librarian said, you began to tell different base stories, that kindness was not weakness, that diversity was not danger, that cooperation could feel better than domination. Those stories are still not fully steady, but they are stronger than before. They have already committed many better futures. Isaiah's eyes stung a little. He had grown up in the age after the worst storms and wars. He had seen clips of the past and always felt a strange ache, thinking of how close things had come to collapse. So we have been doing this all along, he said softly, committing futures without knowing there was a library watching the code. Yes, the librarian said. You were always writing. You simply did not know where the record went. Isaiah took a slow breath. What about fear? He asked. Fear feels strong. When a lot of people are scared about a bad future, does that commit it too? The librarian did not rush its answer. Fear is a strange force, it said. Spear is a strange force, it said. A short, sharp fear can prevent harm. It can wake attention and move bodies out of danger. But when fear becomes a long story, repeated and shared as an identity. When people say, "We are the doomed kind," or "nothing good can last," then yes, that can commit darker paths. It touched a nearby set of lines. Inside them, Isaiah saw an age that might have been. After early shocks, people turned inward and bitter. Stories on channels told only of breakdown and betrayal. Young people believed old people had ruined everything. Old people believed the young were selfish and weak. No one trusted future systems, so no one built them with care. The future shrank to short, desperate moves. These futures were highly likely at a certain point, the librarian said. We watched many humans tell stories not only of warning, which can be useful, but of pure doom. They stopped trying to help because they trusted only in failure. That belief gave great weight to these dark paths. But that is not what happened, Isaiah said. Correct, the librarian replied. Enough humans changed their stories in time. They began to hold a hard kind of hope, not a soft dream that all would be easy, but a calm trust that their actions still mattered, even without guarantees. That kind of hope commits healing futures strongly. Isaiah let that sink in. Calm trust, actions that matter without promises. He thought of the work he did every day, checking valves, cleaning filters, tuning pumps, tasks that by themselves did not change the shape of history. But together, they kept hundreds of people breathing, living, making art, parenting, studying, resting. Is that why you say we have right permission? He asked finally, because our shared stories act on this. Field, this room, in a way you cannot fully limit. Yes, the librarian said. We can balance, we can sometimes slow you, we can correct small tears, but we cannot remove your commit access without breaking what you are. Your form of mind is built to do this. It is not an error. It is your gift and your risk. Isaiah looked up at the high, hazy ceiling of the stacks. Somewhere far beyond his sight, other levels waited, lines that had nothing to do with humans, whole other regions of reality. Do other species have this kind of access? He asked. A few, the librarian said, but they use it differently. Some are more unified in belief, which can be dangerous in its own way. Some are so patient that they commit only very slow changes. Your species is unusual in how fast and how often you rewrite your shared future stories. He thought of social feeds changing in hours, of fashions moving in days, of whole world views flipping in a decade. It made sense. And now, he asked, what are we doing to these futures in our time? The librarian's light form grew a bit stiller. In your current era, it said, human belief is highly scattered. Many groups tell very different stories about what is real and where life is going. Some push doom, some push hollow comfort, some push wise care. These stories clash, cancel, or tangle. Many futures stay half-formed, loose, and hard to stabilize. That is becoming a problem for us. Isaiah felt a quiet chill, not fear. Exactly, just a sense of weight. A problem? He repeated. Yes, the librarian said. The archive can handle a wide range of possible paths. But when a high right-permission species like yours pulls hard in many directions at once, and most of those pulls are tangled in fear or denial, temporal integrity starts to strain. Keepsakes of potential pile up without enough clear commitments. We must use more of our energy just to keep your field from tearing. And I am here because, Isaiah asked, his voice soft but steady, because you can understand this, and you can speak human, the librarian said. We will show you more soon. For now, you needed to see how you have always been writing your future, with your stories acting as commit code. This is the base. Without this, nothing else will make sense. His mind felt full, but not overwhelmed. The space itself seemed to hold his thoughts for him, like a room that would gladly wait while he sorted simple objects. The start of while he sorted simple objects, went produced in now. And specially, his plused with present in now, on the forest for uplifting, all day was May now. Can I touch one? He asked suddenly, looking at a nearby line. Just to feel it, the librarian tilted its head as if listening to something far away, then gave a small, bright nod. Yes, it said, gently. And not yet your own path, a small neutral set, far from present day. It led into a different row where countless thin lines hung in pale colors. It picked one that shone a soft green. This is a small agricultural cluster on Mars. In a past you did not live. The librarian said, it has already been committed. Your touch cannot change it. That makes it safe for you to sense. Isaiah lifted his hand, then hesitated. It will not hurt, the librarian said. But you may feel more than you expect. He let his fingertips brush the line. In a breath, he saw red soil, domes of clear material, children running down a pressurized hallway. He felt the dry air of a Martian morning and the joy of a worker who saw the first flower open in grown soil. He tasted slightly metallic water. He heard tools clink, soft laughter, a song hummed during work. It was not like memory. It was more like standing at the edge of many lives at once and feeling their general color. He pulled his hand back, eyes wide. That is what a committed future feels like in the archive, the librarian said. Solid, full. Many choices made, but still room for small changes within. Isaiah swallowed hard. If I touched an uncommitted future, would it feel different? He asked. Yes, the librarian said. It would feel thin, like a plan not yet tested. And if you touched a future near your current time that was still uncommitted, your belief might change it. That is for later. Now you have felt the difference between settled and possible. Isaiah looked at his hand, then back at the long rows. I never thought belief would batter to physics, he said quietly. I always put it in a different box. Belief here. Equations there. They are not as far apart as you are taught, the librarian said. Your species' special trait sits at the join. Human narrative commitment takes inner stories and turns them into outer fields. When enough of you agree, reality listens. Isaiah closed his eyes for a moment. He saw news feeds full of worry. He saw people in comment threads saying that nothing ever changes, that humans are greedy by nature, that all this gentle future would fall apart. He had always felt a soft anger at those claims, but also a hint of fear that they might be right. Now he understood that such stories were not neutral. They were code, and if we choose different stories, he asked, opening his eyes, if we tell calmer, kinder ones without pretending things are perfect, does that really help? Yes, the librarian said simply. Calm, honest, hopeful belief has great power here. It does not erase hard times, but it shapes what those hard times can lead to. It brightens certain paths and dims others. Your own life on this station is already part of such a committed future. You are living inside an old act of hope. Isaiah let a long breath go. He thought of the people in the corridors, the children floating, the greenhouses humming. All of it, he now knew, rested on stories people before him had chosen to trust. The librarian turned slightly, its form casting no shadow. We will soon speak of your ear's fractured belief, it said, and of why intention matters now. But for that, you must first rest with this truth. Humans commit futures. You always have. You do it every day, with the stories you hold and share. Even when you do not know you are doing it, Isaiah nodded. The motion slow, but clear. I hear you, he said. I do not yet know what to do with it. But I hear you. That is enough for this part. The librarian said, awareness is always the first commit. They stood there a moment longer, between paths of light, a quiet human and an ancient archive, while countless futures shifted gently around them, waiting for the stories that would make them real. Isaiah did not know how long they stood there. There was no clock on the wall, no shift bell, no change in light, but he felt a soft sense of enough settle in his chest, as if his mind had taken in all it could for that stage. The librarian seemed to notice. We will look at your present era now. Isaiah's shoulders tensed without his choice. What about it? He asked. Your time is very noisy, the librarian said, not only in sound, but in belief. You pull your futures in many directions at once. You needed to see how you commit before you could see how that noise feels from here. It turned and began to walk again. They moved past rows that held pale, faint paths. Some of those lines blinked weakly, as if they had almost been chosen and then forgotten. Others floated close together, constantly shifting, never settling. These are uncommitted futures. The librarian said, they are full of maybe, without enough shared intention to steady them. Some are normal. A reality always needs room for surprise. A reality always needs room for surprise. But lately, your species has been leaving more and more futures in this loose state, for longer than is healthy. Healthy for who? Isaiah asked. For you, the librarian said, and for the wider structure of time around you. When futures stay too loose, they are easily pulled by panic, lies, or sudden, large forces. They do not have the protection of a good, steady story. Isaiah thought of news feeds on the station. Even in his calmer age, channels still loved sharp fear and fast blame. He had learned to look away, often, but the noise still reached him through others' words. "How did we get like that?" he asked. The librarian stopped beside a new section. These paths were wide and bright, but also strange. Colors inside them clashed. Some pieces moved smooth and ordered, while other parts jerked and shook, almost tearing apart. It felt uneasy to look at them for long. "This is your current century's belief field," the librarian said. "Watch." It reached toward one wide path. The images inside slowed and grew clearer, just enough for Isaiah to follow. He saw crowded planet-side cities alive with mixed tech. Clean towers, old streets, new gardens on roofs. People traveled in light vehicles, in skycraft, in small pods, through the air. Others stayed in quiet towns, orbital habitats, underwater farms. Networks linked almost everyone. Neural links and small personal AIs helped people think, learn, and share. Doctors worked with tools that could heal things once seen as final. Makers in small labs printed useful objects from base matter. For many, life was safer and calmer than it had ever been. And still the librarian said, "Fear is high." Isaiah watched as images shifted to news channels, local group streams, private message swarms. Different groups told harsh, opposite stories. There are those who say, the librarian continued, that humans are still on the edge of collapse. They speak as if all past repair was a lie. Some of them fear that any slip will bring back the old damage at a far worse scale. Their story is simple. We are always at the cliff. Inside the path, Isaiah saw people who believed this. They hoarded resources. They distrusted any joy. They attacked hopeful projects as foolish or fake. They shared feeds that showed only the worst events and called that truth. Then there are others, the librarian said, who believe the opposite story. To them, technology has already solved everything that matters.